Okay, it's just an observation made. I'm just going out for an evening stroll. It's 11th of June 2024, always long good dates in. It's only what? It's back at 8 or something at night. Back at 8 going on 9 maybe. I got to the there, just up there, I realised I forgot to pack my jacket. And I realised it's bloody freezing. And then I thought, oh, thank goodness I forgot my jacket in the car, because I remembered I left it in the rucksack. I just didn't remember I had it at the time. And I was so glad to get my jacket and tammy on. Now this is summer, right? And then rushing back to the car to get my jacket on because it's bloody freezing. That's just not right. The weather is not correct. It's not up for nothing. The overgrowth as well. It's completely exploded in the growth rate. There's paths in the city you can't even walk on because the overgrowth has grown to the point where it's just overlapping pavements and stuff. That's just an example, just showing you the grass. It's not really so much, although overgrowth has grown everywhere, but I'm just mentioning about the overgrowth that I see around the country in various urban areas. So, within recent years anyway, it's been like that. I wasn't even planning on doing a video, but I just felt like I was going to do it anyway to mention this, to record it for my own records as well. So, it's very, very unseasonably cold. Also earlier, I saw part Bizzare rainbows as well. A rainbow is a rainbow, it's a bow. The ones I've been seeing lately aren't. They're just part rainbows. This is another recent thing. Certainly within the last 6 years anyway. The sunlight is just not the same. It's not got the same energy behind it. It's just not quite, nothing like the same what it used to be. When I'm talking about used to be, I mean going back as far as maybe within the last 10 years. It's the sun's just colder. It's also whiter as well, much whiter than it used to be. Prior to that, we went back to the 80s and 90s. Summers were hot, well, they were warm, very warm. The sun was a nice yellow, golden, warm, very warm. And the heat would linger on through the night. Sometimes it was difficult to get to sleep at night because it was so warm. Now I'm fighting to get my blooming jacket, gloves, tammy on because it's freezing. It's not how the weather used to be. The plants, I can look at my window in my house. I can't even see the scheme that I used to see because the plants have grown up, the trees have grown to the point where it's completely obscuring the scheme. That's just not how it used to be. I'm just changing arm because my right arm is sore. I haven't got the selfie stick with this, but the part rainbows and everything, you know, this is just something that's new as far as I'm concerned because I never used to see it before. I wouldn't be making a song and dance about it if there wasn't any changes. The plants, the trees, all changed. Trees are growing at all bizarre ways and different shapes and at different angles and splitting at the bottom and everything's growing at weird angles. The plantation's grown to a point where it's obscuring the views that I used to get before. In the winter it clears a bit because the trees not lose their leaves, but I can't even see the schemes completely. The buildings, the bus route that I drive, the houses and buildings that I used to see, completely blocked with the trees. It's like that everywhere, not just here in Dundee, but this is just on the outskirts of Dundee, we're in that at the moment, but all in the places I've been to in the country. I go to a lot of places around Britain. Throughout the years and through when I've got the money, I like travelling a lot and I make these observations. I don't make them for the fun of it, I make it because I notice there's a difference. It's definitely a change. The way the clouds form. I see like what appears to be smoke coming to the ground and it appears in the clouds. I've seen trails that appear in the clouds as well. The rate at which the plants grow is alarmingly fast these days. The sun has not got the same energy it used to. When as soon as a cloud goes in front of it, everything gets dark. Even during the day and the afternoon, when it's meant to be really bright, I've got to put lights on in the house. I never used to do that until, you know, within fairly recent years. It's like the light, the sun has lost the energy it used to have. It doesn't feel as warm for a start. Only when you're in direct sunlight it feels more of burning, nipping hot, a nippy kind of heat, a stingy heat, the white kind of sun. It's not the warm, uniformly glow sun that it used to be. It's just more of a colder white colour and a white feeling, and not a hot, burny feeling, rather than a nice warm yellow feeling. Golden sun. And it's just not the way it used to be. It's just more of a... It's not the same. It doesn't have the same energy it used to have. It behaves differently. It goes behind a cloud and the whole area gets dim. It never used to. The area and the light level used to uniformly be lit, and it would remain lit and the energy would still be there. A wee cloud goes in front, it loses all that energy. It feels colder right away and darker as well, until it gets out of a very thin cloud. Now, as I say, that's not how it used to be. The sun was it used to be a big yellow, warm heat. Certainly from where I've lived in Scotland all my life. It's always been a gentle warm, but it could be really warm in the summers. I mean, it's swelteringly hot. We just it'd be like heat wave, it'd be warm heat wave. And it would be like that for a while. It wouldn't just sort of like be warm like nowadays, it's warm during the day. It could maybe reach and peak to a high temperature, maybe about 20 odd degrees. And then come only a few hours in the evening, it'll dip right down to freezing, really cold. And I mean literally, because going back a few years back, 2019 I think it was, I was down in the Buxton area, I was at the Buxton Raceway, the stock car circuit, and I was on my way home. During the day it was a really warm, nice day, nice summer's day. And when I was coming back to go to the hotel, it was about, oh gosh, what time would it have been? I was getting on in the evening anyway, later that summer's evening. And I was in the going through the countryside in the Buxton area, Peak District and that. And it got down to -2.5 degrees, -2.5 degrees Celsius. It showed that on the car thermometer in the middle of summer. It was May, late May, maybe no, it might even been May, middle of Bank Holiday May, so it would have been late May, early June, around about then. It was in the summer. That was, for me, that was unheard of. That's just nuts, crazy. It was never did the summer temperature get like that before. This is the recent thing, and I'm making that observation. That's all I'm doing, because it's something I've noticed lately. It's just not how it used to be. The sun never used to be dim during the day. I never used to have to put lights on in the house during the afternoon in the summer. Even if it was bucketing with rain, I still wouldn't necessarily need to put lights on in the house. Now it doesn't even need to be raining. It could just be just a wee bit of cloud. One day it could be a wee bit of thin cloud, and I have to put lights on in the house. Sometimes I feel like even having to put lights on when I'm driving during the middle of the afternoon in the summer. And the next day it could be even cloudier, and yet it could be lightier. So the light levels are all over the place. It's not even like consistent light levels. It could be cloudy, thin cloud, and it could be dim, dark. Having to put lights on during the afternoon. And then later on, maybe the next day, it could be even cloudy. It could even be partly raining. And yet it's bright the way it should be. It didn't hate to put lights on. It's just nuts. I'm absolutely mental. And the clouds there isn't right either. Clouds are not right. I mean, it never used to form like that. You never used to get dark clouds that just emanate from the ground, and it's just. I mean, they're not too bad at the moment. These are still pretty bizarre there, but it's not. I've seen a lot more bizarre clouds than that, I could assure you. It's sort of like so-so at the moment, but it's still wrong. It's because in subconsciously, through time, you become hypnotised. You don't notice differences. When the gradual changes happen through a period of time, you become accustomed to it, you don't notice it. It's like in saying, if you notice a change right away, if, for example, if I went, let's say the way the weather is and the way the climate is, well, I don't mention the word climate because it's I'm not going into that one, because it's just going on the observations, the weather I'm talking about. If I was, let's just say this was 1995 or 1994, sort of like even 1980s, right? Just say 1990. I'll pick a year I remember. It was 1990. That was a great summer. I was 15, and I remember it very well. It was a hot, beautiful summer. 1986 was a good summer as well. I mean, this is from where I live in Scotland. So let's just say in the 90s, right up till then, pick a day. Right, if you took me in a time machine from the 90s and just, or maybe I'll phrase it, if you put the way the weather was then, right, and suddenly and put into the future like the way the weather is now, to me it'd be like bang, what is going on? It'd be a sudden change, because I'd be noticing a big change in a lot of things. Oh, there's like loads of things. Time speeding up to the ridiculous rate. Got it sped up by a factor of 2. The way the temperature and the weather's, it's just nuts, bizarre. But because it's through a gradual process, through time, it's gradually changing. You become accustomed to it. You don't notice it. It's like, I'll try and give you a better example than that. Yeah, say you own a car. You've had it since new. You bought a car. You've got used to it. You bought it. You've driven it since new, and you've owned it and you've driven it for 12 years, say, right? So when the car's 12-year-old, you'll become accustomed to it throughout the 12 years that you've driven it. But imagine you had the car when it was brand, or even better, here's a better one, right? You bought the car when it was brand new, you owned it all the way through to 12 years, you've driven it for 12 years, you got accustomed to it for 12 years. Suddenly, you're given another car exactly the same as the car you've got, but it's in the condition it was when it was brand new. So you would get in it and you'd be like, geez, how much it's deteriorated. Just what a difference, you know, because in the 12 years, you've become accustomed to all the changes subconsciously, and it becomes accustomed to it. You wouldn't notice it, it's gradual. But if you suddenly get it, compared to what it was like when it was new, all of a sudden you would notice, what the heck, it's all changed. It's like that with the weather, because this is not the way it used to be, I can assure you. For me anyway, I can assure you that. I know what I'm thinking. It's just nuts. Bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. And freezing. This is like this is June the 11th. It's meant to be hot and warm. I've got my jacket on and I'm kind of like cursing saying I've not got my gloves with. My hands are freezing. This isn't right. This is not the way summers used to be. There's no way in accepting this. There's no way. no way, Jose. The weather never used to be like that. It's just, I was at the top of Dundee Law there. I was in the car, I was chilling out, I was doing things on the other phone and that. I was taking pictures of the rainbows. Well, what used to be a rainbow, there was part rainbows forming, then another one formed next to it, only partly. And it's just crazy. I mean, the way the clouds are forming isn't right either. Never used to be the way. The shapes of the clouds are much lower down for the start. They never used to be as low down as that. They used to be way up. There's so many differences happening gradually, and it's becoming like, I was just walking through where I was parked there, I was cursing, I was saying, well, I have to go back and get my jacket. I'm absolutely freezing here. This is ridiculous. Middle of summer. Never. I mean, okay, don't get me wrong, maybe going back, you would get, occasionally back then in the days, you would get like maybe rain, you know, an odd day where it'd be a little bit chilly, like, you know, if it was just raining heavy and the rain had just cleared and there was a bit of a wind, you might feel a wee bit chilly. But no, to this extent, this is like every day for all this year. I mean, every night it's been freezing. I remember I had to open the bedroom window in the summers because it was sweltering. It was like really clammy. Clammy is the word. You don't get that anymore at nights. It's just more freezing cold. I've got to put the heating on in the car when I'm going. I do like late shifts on the buses. I finish at midnight near enough every night, and there's nights where I've got to put the heating on to keep warm in the middle of summer. I mean, blooming heck, I should be putting the air conditioning on to stay cool. It's just nuts. Absolutely bizarre. And like I said, that time I came back from Buxton Raceway, that was 5 years ago or something. -2 in the middle of winter. And it was, -2 in the middle of summer. -2 in the middle of summer. At night, like, it was about back 11. It was late on, maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. -2. Jeez. That's insane. You get warmer winter days and that. That's like what you'd expect in the middle of winter there. And that's in summer. And no, it's just like, freezing. It's a white sun. I mean, look at that, it's white. That is just not the way the sun used to be, and messing about with the settings on the phone just to try and emphasise how white it is. It's a white hot sun rather than it's a white kind of hot sun rather than burning hot, you know, nippy hot, rather than a nice yellow warm glow sun. I must admit, occasionally, only occasionally mind, the sun will resemble what it used to be like. Not 100%, but more like it. And when it does resemble the nice yellow warm glow that I remember back in the 80s, 90s, even in the early 2000s, it's a nice feeling. I feel more positive, I feel better, I just feel more at home. It just feels warmer, it feels better, it feels more positive. But when the white sun and there's no heat to it, I feel negative, like a nippy. It's like an ultraviolet. Sometimes it's virtually blue. I mean, when it's behind a cloud, it's like a blue colour. I mean, come on, a blue. That's what it's like. Honestly, I'm not being funny like, but it looks blue sometimes behind the clouds. It's blue. Blue for cold, and it's the sun. I mean, it's just mental. It's just not right at all. It's just not right. It's too cold. There's no energy. It's a nippy feeling, and I feel negative. I feel negative when it's like that. It makes us feel nippy, irritable. It's not how it should be. It's like a kind of, for me in my experience, it's like a nippy. See the way the grass is glowing there? See the way it's kind of, it's not quite got the same, in the sunset colours, it should be a yellow colour on there. The grass and all that area, the backdrop that the sun's illuminating, should be a yellowy glow, sunset glow colour. That's a kind of it's too bright. It's too white colour. It's too ultraviolet. It's like a nippy kind of. The sun is more of a nippy kind of feeling about it. It's more, the energy is more piercing hot. Whereas before, when it was a yellow warm glow sun, it was a warm, good feeling. It was a warm feeling, but now it's more like a nippy, irritable feeling. It gives you, literally sometimes you feel itchy and irritable. Like you could get kind of irritated easily. There's lots and lots of observations I can make that are different. Like the bird sounds, the birds that are flying around are different, they fly different and they sound different, they look different, some of them. The whole world, the way that the atmosphere, the clouds, the way time's sped up, because I mean that, not just because I'm getting older. I know about the percentages of life. I know when you get older, a year's a percentage. So like when I was, for example, if you're 10-year-old, when I was 10-year-old, a year would be a 10% of my life. Well, now I'm coming up for 49. Coming up for 49. I just wondered what that noise was. That was all the roads not far. Yeah, so nearly 50. So what's that then? So a year's what's 50th, isn't it? So that's 2% of my life. And I'm aware about the proportions, the time proportions. So I know about getting older, the time feels faster than that. There's a less percentage of your life, a year's a less percentage. I'm aware of that. I took that into account. But it does not account for the speed, the acceleration of time, the way it's sped up by a factor of double. It's just no way is it just that. Like I mentioned before, I'm not going to it, but I was even counting the seconds in my head, and I was going by twice as quick as it used to be. So that's an observation. This is all within the last, I'd say the big changes anyway, certainly within the last 8 years, since 2016. Don't get me wrong, I'm fascinated in what's going on. I want to learn what's going on. I do. I want to learn. I've always wanted to learn, and I still want to learn. The changes are obvious to me, and I want to learn what's going on, why they're happening, how it's happening. I want to learn. I know I need to learn at my own rate, of course. We'll all do, and we'll all learn. And I want to know, but it's certainly something that's blatantly obvious to me. And what really makes it even more amazing to me is that when I mention it to some people, it's just like, oh, it's just normal, there's no any difference. Seemingly it seems normal to them and they don't notice any differences, and kind of like, I'm used to that now, but it's bizarre in its own right how they could, some people are even older than me think it's just normal, I haven't noticed. Although we're getting to notice some things that are quite right. I mean, I've known for quite a while now things are not the way that things have changed, that are bizarre things going on. I've always know that there's a lot more to life anyway. I mean, I know for a fact there's a lot more things going on, but you know, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I like sci-fi, yeah, I've always liked sci-fi, but I'm not exaggerating. Not exaggerating about the stuff that's said about the growth rates. I mean, if you look on my video, I've done a series called Quest, which kind of like highlights a lot of the things that are that I find bizarre. But I just thought I'd mention this today anyway, and out chilling out in the evening, and I just found it really ridiculous that I had to go back to my car, rush back to get my jacket and gloves, well, Sammy, but because it's bloody cold, and this is like summer where it should be really, really warm. It's just obvious now that it's just nuts. The light levels, I could go on forever. I could explain lots of things. Even just looking at that tree over there, that's not how branches used to grow. They never used to grow that way. I'll show you. Looking at that tree there. Now for me, the branches, when a tree, even when you look at depictions, drawings of trees, paintings of trees, I've got a wallpaper in my room that's got paintings of trees on it, or depictions, you know, pattern of trees. Trees, when they grew, for me anyway, it used to be they would have a trunk at the bottom, and the branches would grow up the way like that, and they would get narrow at the top. This is actually grown down. Now they're purposely grown down. That's not the most bizarre tree I've seen. I've seen a lot more bizarre trees than that. That's just one example. I can look around and see lots of things that have changed in the last few years that never, in recent years, it never used to be like that. I've noticed this. I can notice it very easily now. I notice it very easily. I can notice it. I can even feel different. I feel different about things. That's another one for you, right? I was at the top of Dundee Law. I was on the phone, and I was doing stuff on the apps. Now, I'm not going to make this too long, but this is just ridiculous, right? I was on there. You get the pop-ups that come up on the screen when if something comes through on the screen, like you know, if a message comes through on Facebook or on the WhatsApp, things like that, you can see a wee caption. Well, one of them came up. Now it was by someone out of the blue, right? I know the person well. Now it seems I'm not going to name who it is, obviously, but that'll seem ridiculous to you, but it's a thought, internal thoughts. When you see people and you see things, you have your own thoughts and feelings, and things go through your mind. If you see someone or see something or whatever, you have your own mind thoughts about it. That's what you remember, how you remember things. And the person that I see was have a certain, things go through my mind where it's just totally and utterly no connection to the person in any way, shape or form. I've never mentioned the thought that goes through my mind to anybody, to nobody, because it wouldn't make any sense. That was quite creepy. That's just the wind blowing that tree. You might be here. It's just creaking there. It kind of like, you can maybe even see it. Probably ready to fall. It's like the theory, if a tree falls and there's nobody there to observe it, does it make a sound? There's all that kind of stuff. It kind of just spooked me a minute there. Yeah, and here alone, and just somewhere, I like coming to places like this to chill out and just... But, yeah, I heard that. What was I saying? Yeah, the thoughts that go through my mind. It's like your own internal thoughts, your own internal thought processes and reasons why you remember people and why you remember things. It's things that are integral to your thoughts, things that you'll know and understand. But I've never mentioned it to anybody because it wouldn't make sense to them, but it makes sense to me because it's an internal thought that I think of. So the word that he used in this pop-up text that came up is a word that goes through my mind when I see this person. That's completely not related to anything, features of the person or anything like that. Completely nothing to do with it. It just makes sense to me. And this person, out of the blue, well, there's no reason for it. I don't keep regular contact with this person. And it's just like, lots of things come up. And it happened to be his, and I happened to have that word that goes through my mind when I see this person. This person I've known for a while. They used to I used to be a colleague for a while, then left, and now was a colleague again, came back again. So it's been quite a while. And when I met him, well, I knew of it was a colleague. So I don't want to use any names. I'm not bringing them into it. I'm mentioning it. I've already mentioned it, but because it's not relevant. But I used to work with him, right? going back, I still work in the same place then working, right? The hell with it. It doesn't really matter, you're not going to know who it is anyway. But that's irrelevant to you, it's just the point I'm trying to make that's relevant that I'm trying to do. But I try to just to say to you. But yeah, I used to work, then he came back, and obviously still that thought goes through my mind. And I've had that thought going through my mind when I see them. It's just a random thoughts that go. So if you see somebody, you recognise them for things that go through your mind. Not features, there's no features of this person. I don't know, it's like your internal thoughts. You have your own reasons why you think things. Well, I thought the word that he mentioned in the text, and that, no bearing, it was the way it was mentioned and how the context it was mentioned. I mean, in other words, it's like, how the heck could that happen? It's not a word, it's a total random word. I mean, I could tell you the word, it wouldn't really make, because there's no any features of this person. I could tell you the word, because I've just thought about it there. There's no reason why I can't, because you wouldn't make heads nor tails of it. And keeping the person's name out of it, because you're not bringing them in there. They're not aware of it. The word anyway is, it'll seem bizarre, but it's cigar. Now the person, I have no reason to think that he smokes. I've never seen him smoking a cigar, but it's a thought that goes through my mind. There's no features or any reason why I would think that. It's just something that pops in my mind, and it just facial expression. Something about it that makes me think of cigar when I see this person, the colleague. It's just a cigar. He doesn't smoke a cigar or anything. It's just something goes through my mind. It seems bizarre to you, but it's like if you think of something you could remember. If you think of something. You see someone or something, you'll have your thoughts in your mind that are integral to your thoughts, and there'll be words and certain things you might think of. I mean, for example, if you think, I don't know, if you just look at that tree, there'll be reasons that you might see something that might make you think of a word. It'll be integral to you, you know. It wouldn't make sense to anybody else, but it will to you, because it's what goes through your mind. So if you think of a word, let's just say you think of, for example, if you see that tree, I'm not going to use something simple if I says green, because it's obvious. There's nothing obvious about the guy why I would think cigar. If you think like bushes, branches, trees, or even the shape of someone's hair, it would seem more because it's related to, it might make you think of someone's, bushy hair and stuff like that. Green, trees, branches, that would be more of a clue. But there's no clues as to why I would think cigar. I get that a lot because we all have our own integral thoughts. I think of things, I can think of a lot of things when I see things. There's things that go through your mind. It's your subconscious, how your mind works, and why thoughts and words go through. Well, cigar anyway was the word. It doesn't make sense to anybody else. It just seems to come to me. I just think the word cigar, amongst all the other things, obviously what he looks like and who he remembers and reminds me of, and the cigar. It's just something, And in the text that you put there, of an expression of a kind of, I don't know. It's like, I can't say this because if I use the phrase, it would be too obvious here in the fairness. But I was using this sort of kind of phrase, as a kind of like a remark reply, and it pops up on the thing, and I'm like, bloody, I could not believe it that this person that I think of that word used that word in that context. It was just a short context. It popped up, and I saw it. I couldn't believe. There's just no way in accepting that as a coincidence. There's no way. I think more on a scientific level that it could be because it's of internet, AI, brainwaves, electromagnetic waves is what brainwaves are. They're electromagnetic. I mean, there's electricity in the cells in the body that operate in the brain. There's electrical charge, electric. It's just like documented science anyway. So where there's electricity, there's going to be electromagnetic radiation, isn't there? There's going to be a wave of some sort, energy. So the phones and artificial intelligence, AI, it's quite bizarre how the birds are doing that, by the way, isn't it? Just the way the birds are behaving now. You could hear the noise that they're making. It sounds really, really bizarre. It just kind of spooked me a wee bit there as well. Yeah, I was kind of distracted by that because that's another thing. Sometimes the birds behave really bizarrely. There's so many things. But anyway, the artificial intelligence, AI, which is the internet, for example, electromagnetic radiations, there's masts that receive the transmitted radiations, the electromagnetic radiation that's transmitted from your phone to the mast and to the processing, where it goes to the computers and all the rest of it. So it's a transmitter receiver. So a phone is a transmitter receiver using electromagnetic radiation. The brain gives off electromagnetic radiation, if you believe that such a thing as brainwaves. That if you go by the science that they say that there's electricity in the body, and the brain functions with electrical pulses, and if there's a certain thought that would be implanted, if you think of something, it will generate a certain frequency, I suppose, in your brain that could be picked up with a receiver, i.e. artificial intelligence via a phone or masts or satellite or whatever technologies are out there. It could receive it, it could process it, it could relay it to someone that's also got a device like a phone, because it was on a phone after all that I saw the comment that had the word in it, the word that just amazed me, triggered words or whatever. So it's just relaying a thought through the internet to someone else, rather than how many times have you going away to text somebody or phone somebody about something and they just phoned you for the exact same thing? It's happened many times to me. There's a mega coincidence off the scale. It's just totally crazy. There's adverts and everything. I could be thinking of someone else that used to be a skeptic, has even experienced thinking of something, and it came up on the advert on the phone. Happened to me many times. I mentioned this before and I just thought, oh no, it's just coincidence. Right, okay, it's coincidence. No danger, is that coincidence? But even some of the skeptics are beginning to notice that that things are just a little bit more than a coincidence. And that, anyway, is just nuts. Like I was saying, if you have a thought, like if you look at the tree and your thought goes through your mind, something that's unrelated, like if you look at that and think maybe, I don't know, swimming pool, for example, something you wouldn't make any connection with. It'd be unique to you if it makes you think of swimming pool for whatever reason. And, if you went up to it and you saw a wee sign or a note or something's written down that says swimming pool on it, you'd be like, it's on a par with that. The message came through. It wasn't relayed to me. It comes through because the notifications, because I'm part of that group, and it comes through on the notifications. And I saw his name, and I was going through other things on the phone, and I saw it. I said, "Oh, it's him." And then I saw what he's actually used the phrase in that manner as well. With the word cigar, and I'm like, it's just mental. I mean, I was just thinking, obviously, because I've used the word cigar, they can maybe trace that back if some of the colleagues that are watching this will maybe piece together that. But it doesn't mean anything anyway, because it's not any offensive way in any way, shape or form. It's just thoughts that go through my mind when, it's just a word that comes through my mind when I think of I see a certain person. I see someone, certain words and thoughts and all sorts of thoughts, but that word cigar comes through it. But the colleagues, I didn't say where I was working anyway, so I could be, yeah, okay, so you probably do know, but I've probably, and just don't want to bring him into it because he's unaware of what, it's irrelevant. It's not offensive anyway. It's just the mega coincidence. It's the word cigar. I mean, okay, that's what kind of goes through my mind. Not in a bad way or anything like that. It's just like if you see something, you have your own reasons for thinking that. You have your own thoughts for thinking what you think that. It's just shapes and impressions that you get. It doesn't necessarily make any sense, but it makes sense to you because it's some reaction that you get from what you're seeing, what you're experiencing. It just seems to have that kind of reason for you to think that, but you'll know it. Other people would make no sense. Like what wouldn't make sense to anybody. It makes sense to me because I understand it, and I relate that to that person. I see many notifications. You just can't help notice them because that's what they're designed to do, for you to notice them. So I've noticed it. And I noticed, and it said his name, and I had the word cigar, the way it was phrased. It's no coincidence. I can assure you, that is no coincidence. That's right off the scale for coincidence. It's just bizarre, isn't it? There's so many bizarre things. It's just, and it's certainly within the last, since 2016 anyway. I mean, the list could go on. Honestly, man, I could go on. I've got files of stuff that I find bizarre. I put them in the Quest series, stuff that's suitable to publish online, of course. There's other things that I've got filed that I wouldn't publicise, but I've got stuff that's suitable for publicising once it's been edited, tidied up with it. And I admit the stuff I don't want to be publicised. And if you look at my Quest series on my channel, that gives you an example. You might have seen them, but for those that haven't. But yeah, that's the scientific thing, the artificial intelligence. I mean, it's just like science. Electromagnetic radiation's widely accepted as science. The brainwaves is widely accepted as science. So phones operate on electromagnetic radiation. Brainwaves, if they give off pulses, electrical pulses during how the brain functions, phone could, well, receivers could receive that, because that's what they do. They receive electromagnetic radiation. It also transmits, because it transmits to the other, well, the servers, the masts, and all the rest of it. It goes through the system, the AI, the artificial intelligence, all through the server computers, the mainframes, processed and then sent to the other phone. So if you're thinking something, even if you have your phone off, it may, well, let's just say it may still be on. I don't know, I can't prove all that, but let's just say it was still on, it was still functioning. You know, it's been mentioned before. And just saying what's been mentioned, that when you turn it off, it doesn't necessarily mean it's switched off, it could still be functioning. And then you've got chargeless points. So even if you take the battery out, you can still get energy from, because you've heard of fast charging, where it's not actually connected up, you know, by cable. It could be charged like the Tesla, where it could be energised. And the circuits could operate from another means. Radiation, electromagnetic radiation, that could generate electricity. That's how a transformer works. It works on an induction system. The coil of wire in the primary induces voltage. Either it'll step the voltage up and drop the current to keep, because the power can't be increased. You can't generate power from nothing, but you convert it. You could change the volts, have the volts higher, and then the current will drop accordingly. That's what a transformer does, but it does it through the two coils of wires. You've got the primary winding and the secondary winding, and it induces a voltage in the secondary winding. Through AC, they induct the fluctuation, the AC 50 times a second. That's what the buzzing sound is. So that's science. I mean, what else have that's not mentioned that we're, you know, widely talked about? That is now, but well, seemingly, because the internet is one thing. Everything you get on the internet is one thing. It's not second-hand information. Even this video, everything second-hand. It's artificial. It's artificial. It's not real. It's artificial. When it gets dust like that, I kind of see things in the corner of my eye. I keep thinking there's somebody walking up there. I know, and I'm just alone here. It heightens your awareness when you're alone, and especially in the woods, and it gets a little bit more towards dusk. You get a little bit more nervous, and quite rightly so. That's just nature. And I keep thinking, I see things moving, and like the trees. It's a little bit creepy at times when you're kind of like away from civilization. Not even Dundee's just down there, but it's a good way to chill out. I don't know how long this video is. Anyway, that'll do. And just thought I'd mention it. So, well, I suppose I could show you some of the sites well in here then. If you weren't really interested in what I said, at least I could show you what in seeing. There's not an awful lot to see. I'm just interested in all that kind of stuff anyway. That's the gas works at Belgrade. So I'm not going in, obviously. I'm not going to go past through anything like that. It's all secure. I'm just having to be walked along here in the countryside on the north bit of the Dundee, which is just a few miles down the road there. It's Teeling's just across there. And I enjoy getting out, just getting away from it all and chilling out. So just a little bit. Not a great deal to see, but way back in the years I used to come to this particular area, back in 1991. My family and that used to come here for, it wasn't quite so fenced off then, but you were actually able to get the car right up here. I was just sort of enjoyed being here. I would sort of like go for a walk around there, and we would just spend a wee bit of time here, and then that was it. We would just go back, and it was just one of the places we would go to, it's all different now. It's all more secure now. You can't even get the car up there. It's all gated off now. So, but this is going back 33 years. So things have changed since then. But it's just sort of on the road to the A928, I think it is, going towards Glams. So it's at the other end of the forest there. So yeah, I wasn't even planning on doing a YouTube video. I just thought about it there, and I said, well, I've kind of like went on about stuff, so I might as well make it. I just thought I'd make this for something I could refer back to. The growth rate of things have grown to the ridiculous level. The trees, I could go on for it, because there's things, the world's changed big time. But it's through a gradual process. It's not just a sudden change, it's changed through a gradual process. It's like, as I said earlier, if you bought a car and you've had it for 12 years and you're accustomed to all the rattles and squeaks and noises and you've become accustomed to the wear and tear, you don't notice it because you've become used to it. But if somebody was to give you a car or say, look, well, there's a car, that model, it's brand new, it's never been driven, go and have a drive of that and see if you notice any changes. You'd be like, what the everything's changed. You'd be like, geez, everything's looser on my car, everything rattles more, there's more wear and tear on my car. How did I not notice all that? All the squeaks and bumps and rattles and all the different vibration sounds and oscillating sounds and all the resonant frequencies you get because panels are loose and things have worn out and all the mismatched parts because parts have been aftermarket fitted and things aren't quite set up the way they were when it left the factory. All that will be there and noticeable. All the differences, the unbalancements, like that side of the car will be a little bit more worn because that side's had a new suspension fitted, that side's still got the old bits. So it'll be sitting more, there'll be more, and things will be out of kilter and you'll not notice that. Unless you won't, because, well, you will, but you won't notice it to the same degree as if you did go in it, if you went back in time or got a car that was brand new. And you would notice it a lot more predominantly, a lot more sharp. Now, I'm just actually looking there on the horizon, and just looking, and I could see sort of smoke coming from the ground. I'm going to show you some big set around off the video. That there, right, is coming up. In the horizon, there is like a kind of, I don't know what it is or what's going on, but it's not the first time I've seen things like that. And it sort of goes in and it forms clouds. It's just not there, but it's like a kind of like a general terms. It's like sort of, it's hard to say that, but because I can't really, but I can and I can't, I don't know what I mean. I can say this, I'll tell you in a minute. It's not just like an ordinary thing, it's different. I mean, I know what fires used to look like, I know what the smoke and all behave. Now lately, the ground-based sort of, it's like, you know, you've heard the terms, I know they're saying what's out there now anyway, it's widely recognised. You've got terms called chemtrails, when you can see the trails that are turning into clouds. Well, it could be like a kind of ground-based chemtrail, if you like, not chemtrail, but in the word chemtrail. It's obviously not a trail, it's not coming from the chemtrail. What they refer to as a chemtrail is the term contrail. If a plane's flying, a jet plane, the hot exhaust leaves condensation. Well, chemtrail, in contrast, the term chemtrail is it's spraying out chemicals for geoengineering, for modifying the weather. So in the term chemtrail, ground-based chemtrails, if you would set smoke up from the ground and it forms clouds. See, this is like just things that are, I make the observation, I could see that. It's not how I used to remember things being before. I remember what fires used to look like before. I know what they used to look like. I know how the smoke used to behave. Gosh, when I was a kid, I used to like fires. We used to have fires. We were allowed, well, you weren't allowed, but they wasn't so strict then. We would get out together and we used to go around bins, and especially at Guy Fawkes. You'd get rubbish to set on fire, build a fire. And we would build dens and we'd have fires and stuff in the 80s. You weren't really meant to do it, but there was less, things were more relaxed in terms of health and safety. Well, there was always health and safety, but let's say more of it happened back then. You could light a fire, you knew you would kind of get away with it. You wouldn't have meant it, but if it was somewhere sensible, you know. So, yeah, I know how it behaved, I know how smoke smelled, I know how it used to go. I used to see fires all the time. I know how the clouds used to be, I know how the smoke used to behave, and I know what I'm seeing now. And what the way the changes are. I know there's differences. It's not just a simple, it's just not normal. Things have become abnormal and more abnormal and more blatant within recent years. I'm talking about chemtrails now, and I could hear one. I can't see it, but I could certainly hear. Oh, there it is. Well, it's not a spun thing though. I was making a video when I was going to one shows and I was mentioning exactly what I was doing, and one of them did actually just spray and then went off. It's like it was actually saying, yeah, there you go. I put the sprayer on and then it went off. I saw it and I was like, oh, it's no spraying. I tried to film it and then I was thinking it's no spraying. It came on, it started spraying, and then it went off again. I'm not making this up, I'm telling you. I'm telling you exactly what I remember. This is what happened. I could not believe what I was seeing. I was like, this is just actually, it's just started spraying as I was thinking about it. I was going along, I said, oh, that's unusual. It's a clear day, blue sky, there it is flying along. Oh, there's no chemtrail, I was thinking, and I was saying to myself, it's not spraying. And I was looking at it, and then it came on. It came on. It's not the first time that's happened, by the way. It came on, It started spraying, left a small line, then it went off, and then it went behind a cloud. And it's not the first time I thought about it. I looked up and thought, it's not spraying, and it's like it's read my mind. It's like, it's just going on. It just came on. It just literally came on, and then it sprayed for a bit and went off. I straight up, man. Honestly, I'm not bullshitting. I'm being honest. I'm not lying. I'm not making this up. It's just, anyway. It's just, you know what I mean? It's, anyway, I just had to mention that. It's, and back in 2018 as well, the sun sets. Sun always used to set in the northwest, in this part of the northern hemisphere. Britain used to set over there in the northwest. Even to this day, since the main year, 2018, I've been noticing sun colours in the wrong area for the time of day. I've seen it in the southeast. I've got footage and pictures and everything to prove it. Well, I say that, I don't like using the word prove it, but I'll rephrase that because I always have in my mind that that's not proof. It's like to say the camera never lies. Well, the thing is, the camera always lies because it's not telling you the truth. It's only showing you an artificial image that you decode in your brain to accept being what is there. This is what you're looking at, it's not me. You're not seeing me. You're only seeing an artificial image. It's just light and sound. It's only giving you the impression. It's not the real deal. And if it's not real, it can't be true. It's fake, isn't it? It's artificial. It's only giving an idea. It's to put ideas into your head and mind. You're only seeing this picture. All the thing you're seeing on the screen is just light and sound. It's just an artificial. It's like to say the camera never lies. Well, it's not telling the truth. It's showing you artificial. And it could be easily a lie. Because depending on the device and how quality it is, it's not picking up everything that's going on. It's only showing you a very small, it's only giving you a very small idea. I mean, picture a million words, all this picture could tell 1,000 words, a video could tell you probably 1,000,000 words. Well, it gives you 1,000,000 ideas. Doesn't mean that's what it is. This could be completely fake. This could just be all fake. They even do it in films. I mean, geez, peeps, even if you look back in the 60s, right? Shows like the Twilight Zone, it's sort of like on a budget, isn't it? You've got the Avengers with Steed, John Steed played by Patrick McNee, and Mrs. Peel played by Diana Rigg. In the late 60s, when it was in colour, you used to use a lot of backdrops. Even my favourite show, Prisoner Cell Block H, you would have the scene. It would be filmed in the studio, but if there was a window open or a door open, the backdrop would be painted. And it'd be painted to look like the outdoors, a certain scenery from outdoors. It's obviously to save money, cost cutting, because it's not to, instead of bringing all the camera equipment and all the gear and all the actors and all the crew up to where the location it's meant to represent, they just paint it on. I've seen it lots of. Oh, you bugger! Somebody there. Shot myself. Fucking shot myself. Just look, there was somebody there. I don't know what he thought, but fuck's sake, probably think it's in some sort of nutcase talking to myself, but I'm not bothered. Must be probably thinking nutcase anyway. Well, not really, because some of them are starting to realise that what I said, they're beginning to realise, but that's the thing, I've always got this thing, we all learn at our own rate. Oh yeah, I've got my own rate, I've got no way, I can't not convincing you this is true, I'm just telling you my experiences. Probably fine though, I probably think so. I know about that lunatic talking to himself. In this day and age, everybody speaks on a phone, is it? That's just the way I was kind of like interacting. I was going like that now and speaking and still doing it now, and he's thinking it's talking to a ghost. I just hope that guy sees it and carrying his phone, because he'll be thinking of completely lost the plot. So you'd probably think that. Nah, seriously, I'm not bullshitting you. I'm being honest and just telling you my experiences. I'm not making it up. I'm just sharing my experiences. No, I've lost what I was saying now. I've totally forgot. I had to pause to remind myself because I was kind of put off. I remember now. Yeah, I was on about the studios that use backdrops and paintings. You can see it on quite a lot of old shows. That was the ones I noticed it on anyway. And that's to save money. So it's telling you a picture, but it's not true. It's not where they are. It's just give you, that's how easy it is. Pictures can be altered. I mean, there's apps on your phone. You can alter pictures. You can airbrush pictures out. You can add things in. The camera, they say it never lies. Well, how could it know? How is it telling the truth if it's not even real? It's not even real. And they use it in the evidence and all sorts of things. Oh, the camera says there's photos, there's all this. Well, I've got a thought about that. I mean, what happens if it's all artificial? Say it's fake, say it's been hacked into, say the image is added to it. It's like they had a survey on certain things. I've got to be careful about this one because it's I don't want to say too much on that, but in general terms, they use monitors for making important decisions. So if you use a monitor rather than seeing it with your first hand with your eyes, you're making life and death decisions, very important decisions based on the monitor, which is feeding you artificial second-hand information rather than the real deal. You know, on that level anyway, seeing is believing. Well, that's only a certain level, because seeing may not also necessarily mean that's what there is. If we were living in a hologram, holographic universe, I've heard that term you mentioned before. If everything was a hologram and you're living in a simulator, so does that make seeing is believing? That's on that 5 sense level. If you just want to take it to the 5 sense level, then seeing is believing. It's the first-hand experience. But if you're making life and death decisions, i.e. using a monitor for, let's just say you're operating a machine, and if you make a mistake when you're operating this machine, it could be detrimental effect. It could cause lots of injuries and death. So you've got to be extremely careful with it. So, for example, if you look out of the windscreen and look into mirrors, although a mirror again is second-hand information, but if you're looking from your first-hand experience and seeing what's going on, you're seeing it first-hand. But if you're relying on a monitor to relay that information as to what's going on, so that you could then decide whether or not to carry out this task. If you make a mistake, it could be cost lives. So you're getting used to and training the brain to become, and humanly conditioning the mind to accept, to use artificial means to make life or death decisions in the real world. And if, for example, it was hacked into and there's an image there that was removed and you thought it was clear because you didn't see it in the monitor, and then you move out and then bang, you smash into something and cause all sorts of carnage. There's vehicles that are fitted with mirror monitors. I'm not saying anything, no matter, I'm just saying what's out there already anyway. I'm not naming anything in particular. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to either. But there are vehicles, you see it, you just go on the road, there's certain vehicles that have monitors for mirrors. I prefer wing mirrors. Always have, always will. You can see more with the wing mirror. You move your head, you can see more with a wing mirror. With a fixed monitor, you can't. You can only see what the camera shows you. If any dirt gets on that, your whole thing is complete. I do not like the idea of having a monitor in place of a mirror. Never. As soon as it came out and I was aware of it, I objected. I did not like it. I didn't like it. Don't like it. Can't see how I could possibly like it. Yet we take it for granted now. There's more and more of them. We do it, I suppose, in a way. It goes on your age as well. I mean, if you would go into a plane, you might think, well, I won't go into a plane unless I see what's going on in the pilot and autopilot and all the rest of it. It's like the change over things that I'm used to. Because one could argue that as well, that if I go into a lift, I don't see what's going on. It's a way of conditioning. I mean, I suppose I grew up in that era where that's how things were in my time. When I grew up, when I say grown up means, I suppose, in a way, before you become an adult, you're grown up, you're in the early stages of, when things are in your prime, it's making the first impressions. That's what makes sets the way. Your first impression will set the motion for all the rest of it, I suppose. It's hard to change that. So when you're a kid, you get sort of, I don't like using that term, but I mean, it depends. I say, no, I'm not going to go down that road. I've heard the words in terms, just other folk have mentioned it anyway. I'm not going to go open up these cans of worms, but I've heard things like, getting brainwashed at an early age. If you go to school, you're getting taught what the system wants you to, how it wants you to analyse the world, and what it doesn't. So that's you kind of like at an early age learning what's being taught, that you are being taught, and it's at an early age. I've heard the term brainwashing. I'm not saying anything like this. This is out there already, and I've heard it before. I know getting into that, but at an early age, that's grown up, isn't it? So you're picking things up. That's the world that you're used to. When you get to a certain age, change is hard. It's like getting into a habit. If you get in a habit of something, it's hard to break from that habit. If you've been doing it for so long, it's hard to break from that habit. If you grew up, like if somebody was born now, which Probably will be. Well, because we're told there's 8 billion people, and we're told that somebody's getting born every, all this statistics, which is probably shaped to suit the system's agenda. I mean, how do you verify it? How do you go and count that there's 8 billion people? How do you do it? Other than take the word for it, But anyway, so if somebody's born now, the world for them would be the way, that would be their norm. That would be their norm. Sorry, just getting a bit, I'm getting put off because I'm looking at the dark woods. It'd be worse if I had my back to it. So I'm kind of don't like having my back to it. Maybe you should be getting back. But yeah, that would be the normal world for them. And when you get to a certain age, it's like you become used to that, and all the developments that you grow up with will become, that's normal. You'd be used to it. But if you went back, suppose if you went back to, again, history is what they tell you, is it? But they say back in, if you go back 500 years, for example, there's no meant to be any electricity around, there wasn't any pylons and stuff to tell you that, there wasn't technology like the way there is now. That's what they tell you in history. I can't verify that because I wasn't there. I can only just go on that by the belief. It's convenient because I can manipulate history. I can say this. I can tell you. If somebody was born now, I can say, well, if you went back 100 years, there was all this. There was cars, there was planes, there was everything. If you went back 1,000 years, there was all the stuff that's here was back then, and they would believe it because how could they verify it? Although there may be a lot more. Maybe there's things that we know about that we could tell the difference between truth and lies. And I think that's a squirrel up there, if I could cut. That squirrel, I don't know. I thought I saw something like a squirrel was gone now anyway. I thought I was going to show you that. I'd get that there. Anyway, but that would be the normal world for them. They wouldn't be able to, it would be normal. But for me, it would be like I've seen changes. And it's different. I mean, obviously I'm aware of technology, and I think now technology is accelerated more. So, for example, if somebody was born now, right? There's, I don't know. I'll give you a better example. Say somebody was born, somebody that's 20-year-old, right? 20-year-old person. Okay, the world for them would be everything that was around in 2004. So, a 20-year-old in 2004, somebody that was born in 1984, there's a bigger gap. I mean, it's not like, what I'm trying to say, it's not, I maybe not explain this very well. Technology, the rate of technology, right? So if we went back to 100 years or so, right? This is what I think. It's not like technology is going up like this, gradually. It's like, it's going up like that, it's going up. And then when the internet's came and all the computers have started up and all the mobile phones and all that stuff and what's going on now, it's like it's going up like that. It's just shot up. So it's going up like gradual, come about 2010 or something, it's kind of like gone right up through the roof. So it's gone. So the gap, the gap between the generations, somebody like was born like, the technology is going up. It's no uniform, is it? It's not like it's going up gradually, continually in a nice straight. It's going like this. It's sort of like, suddenly it's going way up, right up through the roof. It's kind of accelerated. So the gap between 20 years. So like somebody who was 20-year-old in 1990 and somebody who was 20-year-old in 1960. Obviously there's a big change in the technology, but they're nearer to the 1960s. So in other words, they're more like things what they're like. There was more in common because there wasn't the internet. Before then, there was. There wasn't the internet the way we know it. Let's put it like that, to my knowledge. I said I wasn't aware of the internet. I could believe there's a lot more and still do than what we're told, but in say 1990, right, 1990s, there wasn't really the internet. There wasn't the smartphones and stuff like that to my knowledge. Let's put it like that. I wasn't aware of a smartphone back then, and sure it would probably be around, but probably a lot more. It's probably 200 years ago. But anyway, besides that, right, in the 90s and probably in about 2000, up to about the millennium, the year 2000, right, there was more in common with us as to what there was before technology, like before electricity. Well, maybe not that, but certainly in the early stages of electricity, because you still had a telephone that would sit in the house. You would have to, the ones you would dial, put up to your ear with the cable cord. There wasn't so many mobile phones. There were mobile phones, but they're more for the rich and posh. And there wasn't you didn't see it like the way it is now. The way it is now, I mean, come on, they're never at their hand. Everybody's looking like that. But even me doing it now by filming on here. But there wasn't stuff like that. It's just when the internet came, things have changed a lot more. Back in the 90s, people would still go to the shops, they would still go out, they would still drive around in their cars with a bit, you know, there wasn't any autonomous things like now. There was more in common with the earlier generation than what the generation is now. And always now, it's like there's everything's like changed now. There's a much bigger gap. You could probably do all the things we were done in the 90s to get by. You could probably do that nowadays, just sitting in your chair. You could see your mates on the no, I wouldn't do it, but you could see your other people, your mates on the apps on the phone. You get your messages on your phone. You could watch the videos on your phone. You could do all sorts of stuff on your phone. You could go out and organise appointments on your phone. You could, what could you know? What could you do? Not do on your phone. How would you get by without your phone? You know, you could do it on your phone. You could sit in the house and it's done on the internet. But before the internet was there was more in common with the earlier technologies. You could get out. You had to get out and go to the shops. You had to go and meet people. If you wanted to arrange things, you'd have to phone them by conveniently. You'd have to, if you were lucky enough to get a phone box, or if you had a phone in the house, you had to wait. Well, back then people had, you know, you had jobs that you went to a supermarket and you would be served. You didn't have to do it yourself with self-service like nowadays. Things are more in common. But when the internet, like the way it is now, there's much more differences between that gap. So things are, there's a big difference now compared to what it was. So even in the 90s and early 2000s, it was modern times, right, compared to the early industrial age, say, 1900s. There was still technology then, but you would think, oh, that's ancient. Yeah, but we still had more in common. We still had to get out like them. There was a lot of differences, obviously, but suddenly when the internet came, the technology has accelerated right up. There's a much bigger change now. It was unheard of about the things that go now. Could you imagine even, I don't know, 20 years ago, 25 years ago maybe, could you imagine what we could do now with the phones back then? Could you ever imagine, well, I'm going to see my mates, but I don't have to leave the house. Oh, I could do everything just sitting in a chair. I could lie in my bed and get everything. I could organise this, I could do that, I could watch videos, I could get the so-called information news online, so I get to know so-called what's going on in the world. That's the thing I can't get my head around. How could you think you know it all if you haven't even, you know, if you just get all information from the news and second-hand information, you haven't even been there and yet think we know it all. How could we? I'd like to go and travel. Shops, you know what I mean. I hope you know what I mean. I mean, the internet's completely transformed things. So the technology gap is much more advanced. So like the generations that were in the, I don't know, in the 90s or whatever, 2000s, had more in common with the earlier ones compared to what they are now, because of the rate, the advancement of the technology now is advanced to the point where it's it's beyond recognition in a way, but it's just ridiculous. And now we're onto this thought partnering thing. I mean, back then it would just be like sci-fi, but I wasn't really explaining that too well, but I did my best. I just thought I'd mention it anyway. Anyway, I don't know how long video is, don't really care. I'll just stick it on anyway. It's dead easy. I'll just put it in the processor and press record and bang it up on YouTube and make what you will of it. I wasn't even making the video. Normally I would do a live or something if I was doing that, but I can't get a signal. Lives are rubbish. I've tried. If you do a move, see if you're moving about on a live, the picture pixelates all over the place and the quality is crap. So it's better to just pre-record it on a device and you've got clear crystal quality. You don't have all this broken signal rubbish, it just completely ruins the lives. It's probably safer doing a record anyway, because we're live, there's no rewind button. But anyway, there you go. I just thought I'd mention that. It's just, again, I think the world's changed more now in the last 20 years than it has. Well, 20 years? Yeah, maybe 50. Certainly in the last 10 years anyway. 2016 was a big change for me. Even if the term the Mandela effect, I've experienced that. I mean, I've mentioned this before. It's bizarre. As I say, when I mentioned, and you'll know this if you've seen this before, when I mentioned the Mandela effect, if you're interested in the Mandela effect phenomena, it's referred to online as the Mandela effect anyway. do your own research into it, or search and come to your own conclusions regarding it. The reason I say that is because, and it's an absolutely mind-blowing phenomena. I've experienced what's referred to online as the Mandela effect. In other words, I don't know what's actually happening, but it does resemble what's referred to online as the Mandela effect. And when I go online and look into the Mandela effect and research into it, there's things in there that I could relate to. In other words, I could agree with it and I totally understand it and experience it. Or there's other things that I wouldn't know either way. And there's ones that I wouldn't, that I would think that, well, that's not how I remember it. I remember it, this way. And I won't change or convince myself just to suit that. I won't. If I remember it, I'll remember it the way I remember it. And it won't matter. You can't change what you remember. It's a fact. It doesn't matter if you say it. So even if you were to say, oh, do you not agree with me on that one? Well, no, because I don't remember it. I could say, well, maybe. But no, I don't, because I don't remember it that way. I remember it how I remember it. And there's ones where I could say, yeah, definitely remember it. Like, I could agree that's what they're saying it was like. That's how I remember it. I could give you tons of examples. I won't on this video because it'll be way too long. Look at it online. I've done videos on the Mandela effect before. The Mandela effect term was named after the Nelson Mandela. It died supposedly in the late 80s or something. And people remember him dying much more later than that, about 2013. And that's where the term the Mandela effect come from. And since then it's just been referred to widely. Even the X-Files, the BBC show The X-Files, has mentioned the Mandela effect in it. The BBC sci-fi science fiction, well, it's an American show. Mulder and Scully, David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. That's Mulder and Scully. The original series started in 1993 and it ended about 2001, and then they relaunched the series about 2016, I think it was, and it went up to about 2019. And it was in the later one, the 2016 to 2019, when they relaunched it, the term the Mandela effect was even referred to on there. I know it's a sci-fi show, but what I remember and what the phenomena is no sci-fi. I know what I experienced, but I can't say that that's the Mandela effect. Because I don't know what it is, but I do know for a fact that it's changed. It's like, to put it in a nutshell, the Mandela effect, you could refer to it as like history changing. It's the reality that you were once in is no longer the way you remember it. It's changed. When I say that, it's just mind-boggling. That's why I say do your own research first, because if you don't, you'll think, oh, this is just too much for me to accept. That's why I always say that, to give you a bit of a kind of, to smoothly put it, rather than just tell you outright and you'll go, that's just rubbish or something like that. I'd put, well, do your research first, then come again and reassess what it says. And then you might think, I kind of know what you mean, because it's a big thing. It's hard to explain it without sounding too what used to be referred to as far-fetched, but it's not really far-fetched. Even if you go by the mainstream things like the Hadron Collider and all this stuff with the fire the atom, or they split the atoms, or whatever it is they do down there, fire particles. I don't know what's going on with that anyway, but there's all sorts of things like stuff on the TV, and you go to Discovery and you could get all that on there, the multiple universes, and it's fascinating stuff, I'll tell you that. That is, but it's a lot to take in, and a lot to a degree in science to understand some of it. But that's one thing. But what I remember and what I experience is another, and that can't be mistook. There's no mistaking it. I don't even need to think about it. I just know what I remember and how things have changed. It doesn't matter what they say, this, that, and blah, blah. It doesn't matter. That's what I remember. I know what I remember and how things were. And to give you an example, the spelling of Volkswagen, the car manufacturer, the German car manufacturer, Volkswagen. For me, it always used to be spelt with an O at the end. I remember it. This is one that's online, actually. That's why I actually discovered it online years ago. Well, 2016, 2017. And I don't even watch. I don't know what the time is. What was I saying? Yeah, it used to be spelt, it was Volkwagon. It was always an O-N. The second last letter was always O, spelt with an O. Now it's Mandela effect changed to an E. So in other words, it's supposedly always been spelt with an E at the end. So it'd be Volkswagen. N, E, second letter, E. It was always an E now, apparently. But in my reality before, it was never it was an E. It was always an O. And I wasn't mistaking it. It was always spelt. I know I wasn't mistakenly remembering it, because I remember specifically it was an O. There's a term called Mandela effect residue, where there's like evidence of something it was, it's no longer. And I came across in one of my old files, actually, online. Even though I spelt the first letter wrong, I know my spelling's not great, but the point was I spelt it with a no at the end of it. It was because it was on the keyboard, I mistyped it, but that's not the only residue. Even when I went online shortly after and researched into it, shortly after I discovered it, there was residual evidence of even recognised car manufacturing websites, or car websites rather, car sales websites that spelt it with a no. Not just one, there's many of them that had spelt it with a no at the end. They couldn't have all made that mistake, and they couldn't have made that mistake. They deal in cars, they're not going to make a mistake like that. They spelt it that way because that's how it used to be spelt in that reality. And this reality shift has changed. It's now spelt with an E at the end, but because that's now shown online, it's referred to as Mandela effect, residual evidence, Mandela effect residue. But again, these terms are just used widely online. There's many things anyway out there, but I don't know how long this video is. I'm going to have to just end it. It's going to be too long. Right, so I'm just going to end it like this, I'm afraid. I could go on about it quite a lot. I've taken the fresh air, chilled out a bit. I've made a wee video to share with you. It's not been a very sightseeing video, but it's better than none anyway. Right, okay. I'm going to the Banger racing later on in the week. I'll be making a video of that. If you've seen my videos, you'll know all the stuff that I put on. So that'll be going on. It's at the Loch Kelly. Before I go, there's a wee trail. There's a wee trail in the sky. That's probably going to end up. Now that just appeared. Now you might remember me showing you the sky earlier. That just came there, and you can maybe even see it. Another thing is the perceptions of the planes are different now. When I say that, the perceptions of the planes different, what I mean by that is that back in the 80s and 90s, when I was young, when it was a hot day, when the summers were hot and warm, when it was a yellow sun, and it was a warm glow rather than the white hot, burning hot, dim, and sometimes ultraviolet blue sun that we have, that's just blue and gives me a negative feeling, not very positive feeling anyway, a negative feeling, whereas the nice original yellow, warm, glow sun that sometimes seems to show like the way I remembered it, gives me more of a positive feeling. Well, anyway, back in the 80s, when there is someone there, there's a group further up, probably having a party, or you hear music that's deep in there, I definitely hear something, but back in these days, we'd lie in the grass, we'd look up at the sky, it'd be a blue sky, and you would see a plane, but you wouldn't see it clearly. You would see I used to see a dot in the sky moving slowly like that. You would see a faint contrail, a faint trail, and then it would evaporate. You would see it, and you would only see a dot, and that was its cruising altitude, probably about 6 miles up into the sky. That would be I don't know, that's roughly what the commercial flight and a jumbo jet or a jet plane would cruise at, roughly 6 miles up into the sky. And it appeared to me as a dot, and it had done for all these years. That's how it would appear. That was my perception of what the plane was. That's how you would see it. You'd just see this very small dot moving along the sky, and it would leave a very faint trail that would disappear after a while. I remember asking my dad what it was, and he told me it was a contrail, it was condensation. Now, only recently, within recent years, you can now see the full profile of the plane. You look up now, and you can see the actual wings, the engine, the full profile moving into the sky, supposedly cruising at 6 miles up. That was never how it was before. If it was like that, that means the planes have got absolutely enormous now to be able to see it that clearly if it's cruising that high. Or the planes back in the 80s were absolutely miniature, tiny, like a drone size. And there wasn't any drones to my knowledge back then. There probably will be, but not to my knowledge. So the perceptions have changed. And sometimes, occasionally, I could look up, like I could still see the dot in the sky, like the way I used to see it. Which to me is absolutely bizarre, because why would I one day see this plane as a dot moving along in the sky, cruising at its altitude, And then another, and even on the same day, I would see another one. I could clearly see the profile of the plane in the sky, and it would leave the trail. And the trails, even on the ones where it leaves the profile, you can even see, you can actually hear the thickness of the trail coming at the back of it. I mean, blooming heck, you couldn't hear it. Sometimes you could hear the planes now. Back in the 80s, I never, well, I can't say you, I don't know who you are, but I never heard the planes when they were cruising at that height. And I just saw a dot and leaving a very faint trail. There was no sound. No sound. It was just a very, look up, and you would lie on the ground, it was a nice day, you'd just be sunbathing, you know, and it'd be really warm on occasions. You don't have to be lying on the ground, you would just look up randomly and see it anyway. But I remember occasions where I was lying up on the ground and I would see the plane moving along and you would see the very faint trail, and you wouldn't know. You wouldn't actually know it was a plane. I mean, that's what you were told, it was a plane that would leave a contour. You couldn't see it as a plane, you just saw the dot moving. But they weren't cruising any like double the distance or 20 mile in the sky. It would have to be, to see the plane in that sort of manner now, it would have to be cruising at about 20 mile or 25 mile into the sky. But it's not like that. They're not cruising that high. The normal commercial jets cruise at 6 miles. They might, more or less, some of them will, but besides the point, it's not the whole perception of it's just changed. So like nowadays I could see the profile of the plane. They wouldn't be cruising at 1 or 2 mile high. It's quite a considerable height. And then it's bizarre, there's a lot of bizarre things about the Mandela effect and this reality as well. The size perceptions of things have changed. I mean, it's bizarre because here's an example here. Here's a good example, right? This is an even better example. It doesn't sort of make sense, but it's clearly something odd with the logic of the way things are. For me, in Britain, if they put the clocks forward an hour in the spring, in the summertime, it was every 6 months, right? It used to be the second last Saturday of March, the clocks would be moved forward an hour. And then come the winter time, late autumn, the second last Saturday of October, the clocks would go back an hour. And this was to do with all the daylight stuff. That's how it was for me. I always remember it being 6 months apart. And it was like the summer solstice was, and the winter solstice was 6 months apart. 21st of June is the longest day of the year, and the shortest day of the year, 21st of December. That's the winter solstice. Summer solstice is the longest day of the year, 21st of June. They're 6 months apart. And it was like that with the clocks. So it'd be March, it'd be April, May, June, 3 months between, and November, December, October, November, December. This is where it gets really, really, really bizarre. There's always 3 months between. Now, if you think about it now in this reality, it's impossible. It can't mathematically work. It can't be. I remember it specifically and clearly. Some people still have a faint residual memory of that, or even they don't. What they say doesn't really make, can't make any sense, because mathematically it doesn't work out. Yet that's what used to happen. It used to be 6 months apart. But when you think about it now, if clocks, which they apparently do, I've actually lost the track of the day it goes forward because the reality's changed at the Mandela effect. I remember it all the time up until recently. Last year, maybe, I think I discovered that, or the year before. 2 or 3 years ago, anyway. If the clocks go forward an hour in March, which is now the last Saturday in March, what they do now apparently, and then they go back an hour on the last Saturday in October, that's 7 months of summer months. 7. And winter, you're only getting 5 months, because from October to March, that's October, so that's November, that's 1 month, December, 2 months, January, February, March. 5 months. Then the clocks go back an hour. The clocks go forward an hour to give you longer nights in the evening in the summer months. So after that, you've got March, so they go forward an hour in March. So then April, that's 1 month gone by. May, June, July, August, September, October. That's 7 months of summer months. 7 months. So it's 7 months and 5 months. It's offset by a month, which is impossible because I remember clearly it was always the second last Saturday. So this is where it gets fuzzy and kind of diffused. The Mandela effect does that. It gives you two realities that or you think you could sort of remember and experience one, and you could experience the other. You're experiencing both realities. Because there's part of me saying it, but now it's put me in the confusion because I don't remember now which Saturday it was. Before I remember specifically, I remembered it all the time and got it right all the time. Up until about 3 years ago. No, that's impossible unless something's changed, Mandela effect. And it's mathematically impossible of it every 6 months. But it was, I can assure you. And some people I spoke to, it's like, oh no, all right enough, it doesn't make sense. It was obviously it's 7. This is what it's like. They like agree at first and say, yeah, it was 6 months apart. It's like they've got kind of confused as well. And then they just sort of self-correct and say, oh no, but that's 7 and 5 months. Not for me, I don't accept that. No way. That's something bizarre going on. There's mind controlling and hypnotic, all sorts of things that are changing thoughts. It's got to be, isn't it? But no, it was always 6 months apart. And it was the second last Saturday. But now, you try and work out, it's mathematically impossible. Well, obviously, it's like this with the plane perceptions as well. You know, like it's a similar thing. Like I was talking about the planes earlier. That's kind of like making it impossible. Why can I see the profile of the plane now but not back then? And vice versa, you know. If it's cruising at the same... If the planes are the same size and they're cruising at the same altitude, which I believe that they do, cruise round about 6 miles, round about that, it'd be roughly the same. I don't see why the hell they would change that considerably, drastically enough to see the profile nowadays and not be able to see the profile back in the 80s. The planes haven't got tiny, or the planes weren't tiny in the 80s, and they haven't become massive nowadays. They're still roughly the same size. Jumbo Jet, Boeing 777, whatever else, all the planes that are out there, they're all more or less the same. But for it to be, if it was flying at that height, to see the profile, you know, and I could see it clearly, it's either got absolutely massive, I mean like 100 times bigger or something, you know, really stupidly bigger, in order to see it so clearly, or it's flying lower, or back in the 80s they were flying stupidly higher, like near enough touching space to see it that small. But something's changed because the profile of it and the planes, the jets and that, haven't changed that much, and it looked tiny back in the 80s. They leave a faint trail, but now they're much more predominantly much lower. They must be flying lower. I could hear them, but then in the other bit they can't be flying much lower because they've got to keep that maintained altitude for many reasons. So they fly efficiently and they don't hit other objects. There's a certain flight path that the commercial planes have got to stick there. They've got to fly at a specific altitude, at a specific there's a specific flight path that they must follow. The air traffic control have got to keep tabs on them so they don't collide, have a mid-air collision. They've got to stay out of the military areas with the no-fly areas, and all sorts of reasons why they've got to maintain that cruising altitude. And they're not going to change that drastically in the last 30 years or so, are they? It's roughly the same. I mean, the whole atmosphere's come lower, isn't it? That's the bizarre thing about it. Everything has gone just bizarre, you know. I don't know how long this video is. I'm going to just end it now. I'm getting cold. I'm getting tired now. Right, it's getting on a bit. Okay. I don't know how to title this video. I'll think of something. Hope you enjoyed it anyway. I found it interesting. Make what you want of it. Right, see you later on. Bye for now. Bye for now.